medical intuitive astrologist. She's an internationally acclaimed speaker who has presented her work worldwide. Laura is a great-granddaughter of President Dwight D. Eisenhower, and she reveals Expo political information about his administration that has been largely held in secrecy. She is considered by many to be one of North America's leading researchers on health, ecopolitics, alchemy, metaphysics, and galactic history. Laura works to free us from the 3D holographic time loop, false anarchic systems, and military-industrial complex, and exposes hidden agendas so we can take our power back. Feeling a calling regarding her mission, since she was a child, she has gained incredible insight through her wilderness adventures, definitely wilderness, psychic development, and has been connecting major dots about how to guide us into the higher earth energies. She has a deep understanding of Gaia Sophia and our divine blueprint and how they connect to the Venus transits, Earth grids, global alchemy, DNA, and ET races. Her passion is to inspire unity, consciousness, and bring us back to the 0 point / unified field, the totality of our divine powers. So I'll let you take it over here. If people have questions, please keep yourself muted and stop. You don't need to share your video, but when you do have questions, put it in the chat, and we'll come to that if we have time for the end, maybe 10, 15 minutes. Otherwise, keep your mute on and stop your video so we can see Laura. Thank you very much, and take it away, Laura.
All right, thanks so much, Ken. Yes, I tried to mute everybody, and when I pressed it, it didn't really work, but now it seems to be okay. And
well, Laura just left the room. I think she booted herself out.
You're very lucky that you got to, have that.
So hopefully she'll just sign back in a minute or so, and then in the meantime, sit back, relax, and wait until she comes back in the room. Here she comes. I think you booted yourself, Laura. Okay, you're back on.
What do you mean?
Go ahead, Laura. Laura, can you see us?
Yeah, that's right.
Go ahead, start talking. We can't hear you. Oh, no. Oh, she left the room again. There she's entering again.
oh, my goodness.
That works. I can hear you now.
Okay, excellent. And it sounds like everybody's muted. And then do I automatically get onto the screen, or do I have to press something? I assume everybody can see me? I hope so. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, so I want to just jump right in. Thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you, Ken, for having me. I always love coming to the New Living Expo, and it's so surreal that we're here on this online platform. And yes, my presentation is called Showdown of Forces, and I think we can all probably understand why that title kind of applies to the here and now as far as what we're up against. But it's been this way for a really, really long time. But now it's like it's much more visible to people. So the other part of this title is called Into the Unified Field and Beyond, because that's what's required. And these are really trying times, very difficult times. But hopefully this will shed some clarity on some things, and hopefully you'll feel inspired when you walk away. So let me do my share screen here. All right. I can do this. All right. I don't see my presentation. Oh. I will get this. Shoot. I have. All right, I don't know if this is it.
You see the little screen share below the mute and stop video?
I've already pressed it, and
Should be showing the screen.
I don't see my presentation even though I have it open. So it says your entire screen, application window, and Chrome tab.
And all these things that you
Should be good.
Just blows me away.
I'm pressing what I do see, and
Not happening. Huh? Maybe Jamie knows something.
okay, you guys need to mute. Let me try it again.
Laura, this is Jamie with Event Hub. Can you hear?
Go ahead, Jamie.
Hey, Laura, this is Jamie with Event Hub. Can you hear me?
Okay. So I have my
Yeah. Ken, if you can mute and turn everybody's camera off in the meantime, that would be awesome. Thank you.
worst case scenario. I'll just read from it, and I don't need
Well, Laura,
necessarily the visuals,
how
so
about-
we don't want to waste any time.
Real quick though, if you want to share,
I do have it open, and I just pressed shared screen, so, but I'm not seeing it as an option.
Okay, so then open the presentation and have it on your desktop, and then go back to share screen and share your entire desktop. Once you click on that preview, at the bottom right, click the blue share button.
Okay. Should I just put it on the slideshow? Well, then I won't be able to see it. It's open like it's a keynote that it's open. It's not on my desktop. I mean, I would have to save it to my desktop, I guess.
Or just click the second tab, which is application, and you can find it from there, but you have to have it opened.
It is open.
Okay, great.
Okay, so I don't know if it's taking, okay, it shows the keynote. Do you guys see it?
At the bottom right, click the blue share button.
I already did that.
Okay, are you on a Mac?
Uh-huh.
Okay, your Mac is not allowing screen sharing for the browser. You'll have to reset the settings. We could go on, and then we could also share your presentation on your bio at the end.
Yeah, I mean, I can send the PDF, and people can, when they re-listen, they can look at it along with it.
Perfect.
Okay. All right, everybody. Sorry about that. Are we still, can everybody see me? Everything's good? Ready to go? Yes. Okay, good. All right, everybody. So just a little bit about where I get my information. I want to make this part quick. Some of the sources of my information come from just my cosmic mythology studies, galactic and medical history, Keylontic science, Lisa Renee, Ascension Glossary, and mostly my downloads throughout my life and a lot of dot connecting and 10 years of research and just, getting to know other whistleblowers and just living in rabbit holes, basically. So just to kind of start off, we as humans are undergoing a slow evolution to reassemble DNA, which was damaged and manipulated in many galactic wars, resulting in exploding planets. Cataclysms also impacted our DNA, negative technologies as well, and genetic modification and implants. And this is something we've been dealing with for a while. And we see this in other species and beings, and we see what's kind of in front of us. And I think a lot of people understand this globalist agenda, this New World Order agenda, and how it's, kind of connected. I'm not going to go into all that. I know it challenges people's maybe political views at this time, but hopefully it'll help bring clarity so that there's discernment when you're looking at the stuff that they're presenting to us, because there's a lot of manipulation. And it's definitely coming through this pandemic, that they're using that in order to create the New World Order. So anyway, we're coming to the end of the Uranus-Pluto square, and that ended in 2020 while Saturn conjuncts Pluto. That was like the next phase that we dealt with in the beginning of January that really represents this paradigm shift that we're going through, but also how they're trying to keep us in a fear of death to disempower us so that they can really put this dark agenda on us. So as this fades out, the Saturn-Uranus square fades in, and that's what we're going to be dealing with from 2021 to 2023. Back in the 30s, the Uranus-Pluto square coincided with an opposition from Saturn to both Uranus and Pluto. So that happened back then, and in Cosmos and Psych, Richard Tarnas saw this era as widespread social and political turmoil, catalyzing a lot of mass movements, rise of radical political philosophies and parties, intensified labor unrest, student strikes and demonstrations, unleashed mob violence and mass immigrations. So a lot of the planetary aspects actually going on right now are almost a combination of what we're seeing, but it's kind of divided between the right and left. Because a lot of the issues that end up getting hijacked that are important to people, that's kind of the problem, is because they get hijacked and used as a front because they know people are passionate about these particular things. And then the other side is being steered in the mainstream news through, the Mockingbird media. Ultimately, we have to learn to think for ourselves. There's stuff to pull from both sides. The polarization, though, and the divide and conquer is at an all-time high during this particular phase. So the recent Uranus-Pluto square coincided with the rise of revolutionary uprisings and the slow unraveling of globalism. Square is an aspect that means friction between the powers that be and an awakening humanity. There's been an increase in delusionment with governments and state authorities around the world, and a widespread call for reform and social justice, as well as greater awareness of the crimes against humanity and things like satanic ritual abuse. Also, our impact on the environment and awareness of things like geoengineering. Unfortunately, the conquer and divide keeps people from seeing more than just one side. So we need to see a much larger picture and just be like sovereign in our approach. And the more inner work we do, the more our truth, frequency, and authenticity is expanded and strengthened and grounded, and then we can navigate a lot easier instead of picking and choosing sides and getting caught in movements. We can be a part of a greater movement, which is coming together as a humanity, on our own more sovereign terms, with the same goals in mind, without getting caught in the net of some of these tactics that are used in psychological operations and trigger events and different ways to kind of hook us in. So many of the fears astrologers have about the Uranus square Pluto, which ended in 2020, that brought us into this new phase of, the conjunctions of Saturn, Pluto, and Jupiter. Many, fear this aspect, though, because this Uranus square Pluto series are based on what happened to the world in the early 1930s, the Great Depression, the political and social upheaval that took place, and the rise of dictators and extremism. Well, a lot of this was done on purpose. And this is the scary part of the cabal. And this is where we have to be careful of getting played, because, basically right now, especially with the war on consciousness, it wants to create these extremes in us so that we're mirroring the extremes outside of ourselves. So if we see so much division and divide and conquer amongst us, we're going to see that outer reflection. The more we don't play into those tactics and we join together, we'll notice that things outside of us begin to change. Just like when we do the inner work and we clear our internal elemental energies and we purify our negative ego, it actually heals the nucleic acids in our DNA, which are elemental. It helps us to upgrade our DNA, and it helps us to live in more balance and harmony with each other. And the outer world's going to have no choice but to respond, including the elementals of this planetary body, which we are so a part of. We do represent the planetary body. And so most of the healing that we're going to see that's going to help the environment and be good for the whole planet is going to, take our own inner work. Because if we don't clean up our inner terrain, and we don't upgrade our DNA, we're going to constantly see a reflection of a much, lower realm that we've been stuck in with this 3D holographic time loop. So in the early 1930s, the Great Depression, the political and social upheaval. Well, check out the similar timing to this. Just before the Great Depression in 1926, that's just 4 years before the Great Depression, the Zeta Zephylim began interacting with certain factions of several Earth governments. Several projects by Zeta Draco were intent on destroying Earth's grid vibration rate to stop us from evolving or ascending. The Zeta were involved with Atlantis and for a time with the colonization of Mars. And that's Keylontic science. And that's just information that is just incredibly important. But, take what resonates, of course. But when you look at these dates, and the intent being destroying Earth's grid vibration rate, and then we see, the Great Depression to lower us into this vibration of fear, anxiety, lack, poverty. We're repeating history right now, basically. So during the Atlantean cataclysm about 26,000 to 30,000 years ago, this is when the planetary stargates, the planetary grids, and ley lines became controlled by the negative ET races. And so because of that, they're still operating from this level of control of the earth grids, which we're connected to. Our DNA is connected to it. Our energetic body is connected to it. So us unhooking from the lower vibration that they want to collapse us into and lower us into is the most important thing we can do. And that's part of the agenda to mask us and separate us. Yes, there is a virus. People are getting sick, but we have to get in touch with the earth medicines. We have to know what these times are about, because we're transitioning into higher earth energies, and we're awakening things that have been sort of lost to us, that have been stolen from us. And we've been dealing with the rewritten history, the loss of our galactic history. And so, it's just really important that we don't, fall into that patterning again, right? So anyway, I think somebody's got unmuted or something else is coming in. Everybody can hear me okay? Everything okay? Okay. Anyway, so talking about just the manipulation of earth grids and what are these intruder races? What is the Illuminati all about? I mean, there's so much to share about that, and we don't have a whole lot of time, but basically the Orion groups, which are draconian, became an ally to the Anunnaki resistance, who are a fallen race known as wanderers. Not all Anunnaki, though, but they compromised their DNA in order to maintain control. And so they overlaid that on the earth grids, and they created a reversal artificial tree of life template, like grid network, and unplugged certain areas of the earth grids. And so when we look at like 3D reality or the holographic matrix or the simulation kind of realities, is because they're trying to keep us locked into the personality matrix, where they can manipulate us through our self-esteem and our sense of identity. And that's why the family unit is so broken apart, because if we have trauma, if we feel like we don't belong, if we feel like we weren't taken seriously, then it's very easy to recruit people into their movements or their ideologies, because, by nature as humans, we want to feel like we belong and feel like we have a sense of camaraderie, but they of course use this all against us. So this is the ultimate opportunity to raise our frequency beyond these lower forces and lower entities, and understand what they're trying to do in order to be able to use us as a host, because they're parasites. And once we begin to master those lower realms and not let them manipulate us and control us, what it does to us in our own psychology, then we're in really good shape. And this is part of the greater life lessons. So anyway, I'm not going to get too much into Project Paperclip, but this particular group that plays a huge part in the creation of world wars, also the abduction scenarios and all these, different tactics to bring in a new world order, sort of more on the world stage, manifests as like Project Paperclip. The fact that the OSS resorted to whitewashing the histories of Nazis, or sometimes even creating entirely new identities, which made it easy for them to spread their influence in America. In 1946, Truman authorized Project Paperclip. Now, there's so much history here, and I if you guys want to join my subscription thing on cosmicgaia.org, I do 4 Zoom events a month. I answer questions. I interact with people. I do mini readings. This might be a really good place to maybe, get the parts here that you missed and interact. And it's all about building community and all that kind of stuff. So I just wanted to share that. But anyway, it has been said by the whistleblower of M16 that the CIA was created almost 2 years after this in the American National Security Act of 1947 to handle the massive number of mind control, cloning, and other covert projects that were born from Paperclip. MJ12 was also created as a group dealing in ET investigations. So I'm learning more and more all the time. I have somebody who approached me recently who is a part of a benevolent project and program that Eisenhower put together to offset the Zeta treaties and the some of the darker treaties that he's been associated with. There's way more to the story than that, but I'm going to be talking to him on Tuesday, so I'm really excited because it's time for some like positive disclosure, and there is some out there already, but in these times it'll be really, I think, helpful. So anyway, these sort of projects that came in from Paperclip, also Project Mockingbird, is all about Project Mockingbird being the control of the media. I'll get into that a little bit, but it's all about the social engineering, and it's a type of mind control that seeks to manipulate people from their own right to privacy into becoming knowledgeable and self-informed so that the social structure can exploit them with misinformation, and that's used to take control of their behaviors. The intended goal of social engineering is to exploit the subconscious and to shift emotional dependence onto those who have accumulated the most wealth and power. So control of the weather and climate by intentionally poisoning and polluting the earth and natural resources through hidden technology and secret military agendas in order to make these resources as scarce as possible, while spreading misinformation in the mainstream about environmentalism and climate changes, is also a part of these projects. So Operation Mockingbird is an alleged large-scale program of the United States Central Intelligence Agency that began in the early years of the Cold War and attempted to manipulate news media for propaganda purposes. It funded student and cultural organizations and magazines and front organizations. So what we're seeing with the censorship in social media, what we're seeing with indoctrination in the school systems, and everything, connected to this, is a part of that. It doesn't mean it's all lies, but this is where we need to be more sovereign, right? So media has an important role in spinning disinformation and targeting humanity in a mass mind control operation. It is directed psychological and emotional operation used against the public. It intends to incite people into violence and tell you how to think. So cosmic and natural law are encoded with our ability to create alchemy and transformation and mass healing. They constantly seek to fracture us so that we can't really access this energy. So I think I've said enough about all that, but anyway, we're at the end of a 26,000 year cycle, and these conjunctions that we've been dealing with represent the paradigm shift where we have to let go of the old paradigm of control, the social engineering, the mind control, all the different tactics used to keep us stuck in all that. So it's incredibly important that we recognize that this is a time of transformation. And so they know this because they understand the astrology and the psychology of how humans think. So what better that to disrupt that than to throw a pandemic in the mix and all of a sudden stunt our growth and throw us into this place of fear. And this might not resonate with everybody, but I've been researching this and been focused in on this ever since childhood. The problem is that when it comes down to the leaders or the political affiliations, people will think that you've just joined a narrative, or it's a political interest, or this is why you must think this way because, they might accuse you of that kind of mind control. But I've never voted before. I don't necessarily totally support about this administration, but what it really comes down to is that let's not make it political. This is about deep state, new world order versus our ability to advance as a human race. And these vaccines and all the different tactics that they have is to absolutely do the opposite with this sort of facade of, oh, we have to do this to save the environment or to save the world. And there are pieces about some of that are true. But what about all the starseed missions? What about all the people with missions that don't need to mask individuals, separate them from their families, and do really, really barbaric and horrific things in the name of protecting them from a virus? We're advancing as a human race, which means we're moving into our abilities as alchemists, switching on our dormant DNA and accessing our greater spiritual powers. And why should we fear something so much when we know that dying is a part of life? And if it was an organic virus, isn't nature taking its course? And shouldn't we allow nature to take its course and do our best to just increase our immunity and take good care of ourselves and our physical health? This is completely, something else. So it all goes back to the Saturn moon matrix and the mind control being beamed on us. And I know mind control is kind of a strong word, but these darker influences. So for example, like the Saturn moon matrix, like I said, Saturn's black cube holds a massive tank that acts as a harvesting station for blood sacrifice from human beings in any way imaginable. Our capacity to clear ourselves of false tyrannical authority and not fall for the facades is how we expose crimes against humanity and protect ourselves and sort of clear and purge out anywhere that it's hooked into us. And so it doesn't even matter about the politicians or political affiliation because, they use these people in order to create the proper terrain, or in their eyes, the proper terrain, in order to make it easy for this to work. So it doesn't even matter about the characters that we support or not support. It comes down to us. What do we really want? Do we want to be sovereign? Do we want to awaken? Do we want to switch on our dormant DNA? Or do we want to live in fear and be locked in our homes? So if we keep making it about the leaders and the people or the political affiliation, first of all, we go against each other. Second of all, we externalize everything. We make it about them when we have to remind each other what it's really about and why it might be wiser to move in the direction of supporting a particular person and all the things behind it. I know that the plan is connected to something that was put in place around the time of the government ET treaties in the Eisenhower administration, a positive military operation. Many of them were put into place, and we're going to start to hear about this more and more, connected to the white hats, connected to all this different type of stuff, and higher benevolent races and benevolent secret state or super soldier programs. And this is the example of somebody I'm going to be meeting that's going to tell me all about it, and hopefully it's authentic, and because we need this kind of thing, and more solid kind of evidence. But I've been pretty aware of it. I got a lot of information coming in when I was a kid about the more positive side of things. That's why my message has always been positive. But it doesn't get so much into the technology and so much into the dark agendas. My favorite part of what I love to share is actually about to come up. But just before I get there, it's sometimes important to expose the dark part before we bring in the super awesome stuff. But anyway, the black cube matrix siphons life force from living systems and beings and routes it back into its black hole system. This is the time loop. Dark technologies placed in the earth grids, implants, and other methods are how this is successful. The different levels of New World Order rollout are designed to further compromise us. So this has digressed our evolutionary timeline in the direction of soul harvesting, and that's the creation of loosh energy through these false flag events and all these different traumatizing things. And it's used to power the false creations of the phantom matrix, the demonic hierarchies, and artificial timelines. The end goal is to fully enslave the consciousness of Earth and keep us from expanding into the rest of our multidimensional selves. I can safely say this is not going to be successful, and I'm going to tell you why. All right. So this year is very much the planetary dark night of the soul, and the planetary aspects really validate that, especially with Pluto and all this Pluto, especially Saturn, conjunctions and the nodes. I mean, I could get into the astrology of it all, but we don't have that kind of time. But anyway, after the planetary dark night of the soul, just like with our own world, in our own lives, when we go through the dark night of the soul, we either rebirth into a false sense of progress because we allow somebody to jump in while we're in this initiatory cycle and tell us, no, this is how to think, this is what to do. And they kind of kind of jump in and disrupt the process, or convince us that, oh, we need this doctor or this medication or this pharmaceutical or this solution, when really we got to breathe through it and become, strong within ourselves. Why do we have to answer to these individuals outside of us? We've got our connection to spirit and Mother Earth and our own soul energy and our own intuition and our own higher awareness that we can be working with. So this is what these times are about. We know that, there's something called ascension, and it's a real deal thing. But these external forces and these outer characters are just literally wanting to make these initiations confused. They're not guiding us in it. They're taking advantage of the discomfort that any death transformation cycle is inevitably going to bring, as we know in our own lives. When we go through a breakup, when we go through an illness or anything, this is a chance for us to rebirth and grow and transform. And every adversity can guide us into greater wisdom and self-knowing. Those challenges are there to help us to advance, but they're literally, taking advantage of it. So we either rebirth into a false sense of progress and get pulled further into harmful technologies and see a doubling down of control through technology as we lose even more of our freedom and humanity to algorithms and robotics and AI and transhumanism type things, or we pay attention to these dangers. So not all AI is bad, not all technology is. I mean, it's not about one or the other. It's about how can we spiritually develop and be responsible with the technologies that are in our hands and be able to disclose the more benevolent kinds of technologies that are really going to help the human race, instead of these darker forms, which are benefiting some and not all. So Saturn in Aquarius will build new structures by bringing people together to network and exchange visionary ideas about the future based on humanitarian values. But at the same time, we're going to see this inverted version of it. And the loss of freedoms from individuals that deserve to pursue their missions and dreams. I mean, look at all of us that come together at these events. We all have our presentations. We all have our life's work. So do you guys. I mean, that would be stripped from us. And that, to me, holds much greater power than these outer authority elitists that are tricking the good nature of humans out of standing in their power, which is what we have to do. So a very eventful solstice week is in front of us here in December, as the long-awaited Jupiter-Saturn alignment in Aquarius occurs on the 21st, followed by Mars conjunct Eris, which is an asteroid connected to strife and conflict, on the 22nd, and then Mars square Pluto on the 23rd. So those are some pretty intense aspects, but it depends on the level of consciousness of the person as far as how they respond to these aspects. So the Mars square Pluto can create a lot of violence and disruption if you're in a low energy. But if you're in a higher energy, it's like rocket fuel, and it'll help you to move mountains. So this will, these aspects though, in the Jupiter-Saturn alignment in Aquarius, which so many people are talking about, this will help with burning up and moving out any blocks. But if we're not conscious, it's a highly volatile and violent aspect. Once we do this, we can begin to experience the higher Saturn. This is when we can really begin to move away from that control system and really like be on a beneficial timeline. A lot of us are committed to seeing the whole human race come. That's why we're witnessing so much. But everybody's got their own agreements. But experiencing the higher Saturn is the opposite of course, control, tyranny, energy blocks, oppression, just all the things that represent outer authority that's abusive and tyrannical. So when we go into the higher Saturn, it means that we've learned what works and what doesn't work, because it's connected to the law of structure. And ultimately what works is when we determine what rules and what things that we want to be responsible to and discipline about, what are those things that actually serve us and serve the human race, that help us to thrive? You know, sort of the law of structure and the authority that is connected to cosmic and natural law. Like my authority saying, I'm going to eat well today. I'm going to get some exercise. I am going to write a book. You know, those are all things connected to the discipline, responsibilities, and authority, but it's healthy versus be masked, be locked up, listen to what we say. We're going to censor you if you say this or say that. That's the outer authority, and it's become tyrannical. We have to become empowered in our inner authority, because Saturn is the law of structure. It rules our teeth, our skeletal system. And so all these planets are connected to what we carry within ourselves. So the ultimate awakening is kind of pulling it all within and saying, okay, we got to graduate to the higher octave levels of every planetary body, because they're utilizing the shadow elements of the planetary bodies to hold us in a shadow kind of dark phantom world. Saturn's job is to ultimately strengthen us, similar to how resistance weight training builds muscle. We are in a spiritual boot camp, so to speak, with the end goal of awakening to our true potential, understanding what is dormant and targeted, and rescuing those things like our junk DNA, because it's not junk, and our galactic chakras, which have not really been open for a lot of people. And this is another manipulation, that they would tell us that the DNA that connects us with higher harmonic universes and ascension is junk. So further indoctrination. So anyway, there's either the ascending hub, higher timeline, positive organic ascension timeline, or a bifurcation happening and just people going off into the phantom earth timeline, the artificial timeline. And the reason it's artificial is because it's playing on our wounds and traumas and creating belief systems that are false. But when we begin to work through that and we allow the adversities and the traumas to help us to heal and to help us to step into our higher potential, then of course it's organic, because it's based on us utilizing the fullness of all that we are, going inward, you know, connecting with earth medicines also, and people that are healthy and of integrity that belong in our lives, instead of the people that are just going to mistreat us and make it feel like it's really hard to speak our truth. We don't need that. So anyway, the things that have created the sort of lower timeline are technologies like the Nephilim reversal grid technology. It's a massively complicated alien structure that has interfered with true spiritual marriage, or Hyros Gamos, as a possibility for human beings on the planet. Also, the Niberian diodic crystal is another negative ET technology control network. This affects the grids, and I was talking about these different groups that have that agenda, and have been placed in sacred sites such as Stonehenge to upset the energy meridians and planetary grid network that connects with sacred union and the synthesis of the masculine and feminine and the electromagnetic, which is how we upgrade our DNAs to bring balance to the right and left, masculine and feminine, integrating polarity. And that electromagnetic connection that happens begins to expand our awareness of the greater electromagnetic spectrum and the full spectrum of frequency of how much we have as resources to work with as far as what we can co-create in this reality. So people with visions and dreams tend to manifest those visions and dreams because we're very creative and powerful beings. So we don't want to lose that, and we don't want to give that up for anybody. But the problem is once a person becomes addicted to the bait that they present in society, which is presented in all forms of manipulation and deception, the architecture of this control system hooks into you and takes your vital force. That's why people are feeling drained all the time. And we drink so much coffee, right? This is what feeds the technologies, and it goes off planet as well. Our free energy has been used as a weapon against us. Different false archetypes are played out, and they are rewarded and encouraged in our society. So what is they, right? It's like they're archons, they're demonic. Dark agendas of fallen groups, refugee races that are just looking, for a way to survive also. I mean, there's so many different levels to it because there's a lot of different types of races and species, but we don't need to get into that. The whole point is that we have it within our reach to move to the higher levels of these planetary energies. And life gives us everything we could possibly need in order to do that. But we need to answer to ourselves more. We need to be comfortable with the inner process of, understanding why we operate the way we do. And is it authentic, or is it just a program, or is it an ancestral pattern that needs to be cleared? And we can all help each other with that. That's why I do these group calls 4 times a week to create community. Let's all talk about it. Let's all work it out together. We don't have to be alone in this. We got to have each other's back and encourage each other. But anyway, this goes way back. And as far as like I said, the control of the grid networks, mass biological and mind control devices exist well beyond the technology of implanting tiny physical chips into humans, which accompany many of the abductions by the Greys and non-benevolent Zetas, and also are an impending application of such electronic devices by the one world government to the population. So even brain signatures radiated by government HARP and Gwen towers are relatively superficial compared with ancient existing global grid systems, which can be used for manipulating the evolution of all life on the planet, including the planet's evolution itself. So Global Grid Systems by Noel Huntley, who has a PhD and talks about mass mind control, talks about the original manipulation of the Earth grids, which is why it's so difficult. We're born into this world. We have amnesia. We don't know why we're so, it's like, and then we're put in front of the television. We're told to go to school. We're not operating as authentic beings. So most people here and the kind of community that this represents are people that refuse to just be a product of what society is pushing us to be. But the end goal is to control the bioneurology of the human population through electromagnetic signals, prescription drugs, vaccines, medical devices, GMOs, and an assortment of toxins and poisons placed in the air, water, and food supply that generate many human diseases, while ensuring that the knowledge to cure these diseases is made unavailable to the masses. So these are based in the law of reversal and all this kind of stuff. Everybody hearing me okay? Okay.
Have her leave it with you.
So, all right. I can hear a lot of noise in the background again.
That's what I'm asking her. I'm asking you for a copy. Yeah, I'm asking for the right.
Okay.
So you can send me. Yeah.
I think it's, I don't know. All right. Well, lots of people are dropping away anyway. So where's the good news, right? It's like there's been a timeline shift. The timeline shift took place in 2010. The Melchizedeks are the genetic hosting race of the Earth's ascension cycle for the last 35,000 years. And as of 2009, 2012, our planet went beyond the Melchizedek universal field to prepare for the return of the 13th gate pillar of Mother Ark and the crystal star hosting, the return of the goddess energy and the override frequency. And that's Ascension Glossary, Lisa Renee, and Keylontic Science say this. And I knew there was going to be a timeline shift. I was prepared for this when I was a child, and it has to do with the mother energy. Where do we really, truly hear about this? Right? The crystal star hosting, the shift of timelines that took place. Well, we do hear about the 2012 prophesized Mayan calendar date of kind of the end of the world, which really is a new beginning. But this was really the timeline shift, and we're still in that. And because we are still in that, what they're trying to push on us with the propaganda we especially, don't want to believe, because we're not in a time where they can get away with this agenda. We just aren't. They actually wanted to be where we are right now a while back, but, it's gotten to the point where we've already achieved victory, but they're still playing out and trying to roll out the same kind of thing. But the agenda also states that it was going to come later. But, I think they keep upgrading it based on us awakened ones that haven't allowed things to get, worse in times that things really could have gotten worse. But we just keep trucking along. So I was talking about our DNA holding the nucleic acids that are elemental. And so that's earth, air, fire, water in the nitrogenous base of our nucleic acids of our DNA. And I can name all the nucleic acids: cytosine, guanine, adenine, thymine. Metaphysically, each of these nucleic acids is connected to the elemental substance. And in both DNA and RNA, the mitochondrial DNA serves as the fifth principal element of cosmic ether, which is sourced only from the mother. So if we're talking about a timeline shift where the mother energy is coming back, well, of course, this is going to affect our DNA because our DNA is elemental. So if in both DNA and RNA, the mitochondrial DNA serves as the fifth principle of cosmic ether, which is the fifth element we see in the pentagram when it's pointed upright, represents the ether and our connection with spirit. This energy is returning, and the ether energy has not been available for thousands of years because it was put in reversal codes because of what they did to the earth grids to keep us separated from the mother. And really, that energy of the ether, which nurtures us and purifies us. When the timeline shift happened, that energy came back. That's why people started to awaken. People started to heal and transform and have all these incredible experiences. But before that, and still some that refuse to wake up, through the mitochondrial DNA damage humanity has experienced, they have become grossly addicted to consuming everything in the external world to fill this energy void within our cells. So that's why, when we think of all the suffering that's taken place, it's like the disconnect from our mother, even our biological mother, of course, which kind of plays out, we see the archetypal battles being played out in our micro world. That loss, though, damaged our mitochondrial DNA. But it wasn't just a loss through belief systems or false teachings or religions. It was done to the earth grids, and that ether energy wasn't available. Well, as of 2010, the sun started to move through the 13th sign of Fiacus. Actually, right now, we are moving through the 13th sign of Fiacus. That's why I was so glad to be able to do a presentation while we're actually moving through Ophiuchus, which takes place November 30th to December 17th. It doesn't mean your whole natal chart is different because the sun didn't start to move through the sign until 2010. But this is the return of the ether. This is the return of that elemental that heals our mitochondrial DNA, which really begins to switch things on. It turns the inverted pentagram around, and as we see with the Venus transits, that's what the Venus transits have been doing, which is all part of this process of Ophiuchus coming in. So the themes connected to Ophiuchus, which is the 13th sign, are the 13th gate, the 0-point unified field, the aquiline sun, and the sun's movement, like I said, in 2010. It creates a solidification of timelines. In this time that we're in right now, right? If we can really, really integrate this and stand in alignment with it. So if you think about it, if we're done moving through Ophiuchus by December 17th, less than a week after that, we have December 21st, the big conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn. But this is preparing us for that. And we're not necessarily, somebody else has their thing. We're not necessarily used to moving through this energy every year because it started in 2010, right? And this stretches the Gregorian calendar, and it's just, and some disinfo about it say, oh, that doesn't exist. Oh, that's just a whatever, right? But let's look at the properties of Ophiuchus. The creatrix connectivity, pure transparent crystalline light, divine mother, and the cleansing power of cosmic love, recoding the DNA, aligning to the cosmic heart of Lyra in Andromeda and Universal Center, rebirthing, cleansing the blood, breath, and mitochondria. Ophiuchus is ruled by Chiron, the wounded healer, meaning we have to be transparent with our wounds. We have to be willing to face them for us to receive this healing. Because if we're in denial, if we're medicating it, or if we're just allowing ourselves to just be sucked into the news, we're not going to be holding space, to really enjoy this. The element it's connected to is divine fire water, otherwise known as the ether. It connects us with the golden gate. So this is what makes every year different in our human history for the last 26,000 years, because we didn't have this ability to enjoy this time of year and what it represents. Doesn't mean that it's not available every other month of the year, but this is a heightened time where we can really, really integrate it. So really, like, I want to I encourage everybody to meditate every day and just really, know that this is real and this is true. This phase is the solar alignment with the cosmic ether, which is at the core of the galactic center, which represents pouring of healing spiritual waters into the earth and humanity from Mother God. Previously, these waters were corrupted by entrapping the Mother Principle and Gold Ray Seraphim on earth. Entrapping the Mother Principle is the Baphomet, is the reversal codes, is the Dark Mother, is the reversal of the ether energy. And in 2010, that began to shift. But of course, everybody expected 2012, something big's going to happen and it's going to happen overnight. Or when we think of ascension, we think it's just going to happen overnight. This is a process. It's an alchemical process. It's healing 26,000 years of a very dark history. But we're talking millions of years, billions of years before that, and all these galactic wars. So this is a process, and we're healing with the Mother. So we got to be really patient with ourselves. There are cosmic levels of Christ Sophia plasma beings that are here to protect humanity from AI extinction codes through shielding the earth. We have defenders of the Great Mother here on earth and new arrivals serving the Palladorian Covenant, which made a covenant that brought on all these starseed missions in order to prevent this planet from going into what they're showing us we're going into, but we're not. But we all have to stand accountable and experience this incredible shift that's happening. Through the current cycle of the Palladorian activation, the next stage for the Palladorian groups are being highlighted, namely the Aquafarian and Crystal Blue Dragon races, to support the rehabilitation of the Blue Ray lineages. The Blue Rays restore the Mother Arc 13th transharmonic gateways throughout multiple harmonic universes and are rebuilding the vertical planetary staff to naturally align into the heart of Andromeda. What this ascension time really is the Milky Way galactic core and Andromeda Milky Way core becoming one again. The 13th transharmonic gateways connected to the 13th sign of Fiacus that we're experiencing right now connects us into the 0-point unified field. This is the ultimate opportunity to receive the activating codes that are going to help us to bypass and jump the timeline off of this one that we're all witnessing. Doesn't mean we're on it just because we're witnessing it. But this means that all of us that are completely and utterly devoted to serve the cosmic Christ consciousness, in whatever way you want to define that, everybody's got their own terminology, but literally becoming a Christed being, becoming that avatar consciousness that you once were, activating those dormant strands of DNA. But anybody who's really devoted to that during this time will undergo some level of the archetype battle between the Antichrist and the Christ forces on the earth. Good versus evil, right? To move from the personality harmonics into the soul harmonics. Ascension means we're moving out of the personality matrix where we're easily mind controlled. We're moving into the soul matrix where greater synchronicities happen, more soul connections, soul family, soul mates, right? A lot of us are already existing in that realm, but we're constantly being targeted or bombarded by these lower energies. So this is where the shift is taking place. And it's happening within the next couple of weeks. I mean, this is the time right now. This is why everybody is saying what a critical time this is. But if we get lost in the entanglements of what's going on in the outer world, we'll forget to hold space for ourselves to get these activations. It's really important that we take time to meditate and visualize the timeline we want to be on, and also trust the fact that we're on a positive trajectory. We can then create it through our words and actions. It's always good to be prepared for some sort of intense global event, but also important to recognize that adversity is actually pushing us into our greater potential, so we can draw in the substance of divine power and our dream energy from the creative imagination. And it's good to come up with some sort of daily routine to really just make sure you're holding space. And everybody probably has heard of the Hawkins scale. The low vibration of shame, guilt, apathy, grief, fear, desire, anger are all calibrating below, 200. Then you start to go into willingness, acceptance, reason, love, joy, peace, enlightenment, and you're getting up to the higher frequencies. But we have to remember, when we do fall into apathy or guilt or grief, let's not feel guilty about it, right? Know that it's temporary. Know that it's just a momentary thing, and then just ask yourself, okay, higher self, this isn't a fun place to be. And wow, look at how this agenda is really steered towards throwing us in similar types of low energies, fear, Maybe just, being obedient and not fully understanding like what we're being obedient to. So, all we can do is do our best to help those that are caught in these dark agendas. And we got to be very careful. And I do myself, because, if you start talking about political leaders or a particular side, people might misunderstand you for, having your mind and your beliefs molded by those, people, even if they haven't even listened to them before. We have to ask ourselves, though, what are the choices in front of us? We either have the opportunity to pursue our dreams, our visions, our goals, our own healthcare, so that we can work with herbs and be close to the earth, our ability to come together and do events and meet in person again, and all this kind of stuff. And so let's pray to God that the T-Man does not do a mandatory vaccination. He's said he won't in the past, but, and let's just hope there's no manipulation there. I don't put my faith in governments, though. I just know that this has been a much, much different kind of thing. And it's pulling me in a little bit more than it normally would, because both sides are owned and there's something just never been right about it all. And I've learned the history since World War II and our galactic history. But the most important thing is, focus in on your own truth and what's important for you, and just take the time to really, really own that. And then it'll be so much more easier to navigate like what's going on in the outer world. The most important thing is that we don't lose our constitutional rights. I don't care who is out there in a leadership role, if their whole mission is to make sure we don't lose that. I don't care if he has a totally difficult personality. So that's kind of what it comes down to right now. But it's not going to work if we don't do the inner work, if we don't understand that the earth energies hold the ascension codes, that the greater purpose and mission that we all have to stay aligned with is that we won't let this outer stuff conquer and divide us. We'll allow this time to move into greater compassion with ourselves, greater trust of ourselves, so the energy can flow, so that our downloads can come in. Because when there's self-doubt or fear, that immediately gets blocked. And so everything that's creating those blocks is what's making it easier to control, the masses. Because ultimately what we want to do is begin to activate our galactic chakras. When we activate our 8th and 9th chakra, the infinity spiral gets activated, and then we have our spiritual abilities intact. And we need to recall and reclaim those spiritual abilities, because through our hand chakras and through our energetic field, we can actually block harmful technologies like 5G. We can be in alignment with the frequency waves that can put us out of harm's way. And create synchronicities to connect with our, soul family and benevolent groups and beings that might take us into an underground crystal city, right? So, the thing is, we want to see a much, much bigger picture, not get caught in the 3D battle that's going on right now, but just know that this is a different kind of election, and it's really important to, if it is something you want to avoid, it's probably better that you do, but there's something, though, that is worth exploring a bit, and Dark to Light that David Rodriguez and I do together can help answer a lot of these questions that people might be confused with. But it's not about fixing yourself to anything either. It's just about knowing what's at stake, because this dark agenda is no joke. It's going to affect future generations for longer than I can say, and it's going to be a living hell on earth. And so we just kind of need to understand that, because we all have to stand up and work together. It's not about putting somebody on a pedestal or putting expectations all on a president or a leader. It's about all of us standing up to our mission and our truth and supporting the freedom that we all deserve, so that we can live in harmony and in unity consciousness, but with integrity and mutual love and respect, because nobody needs to ever harm another. So anyway, beyond that chakra, then we start to move into level 1, which is building wings, which is the 6 and 7D, which begins to activate our dormant strands of DNA. And then level 2, crystal lotus heart, which is our chakras 8 and 9, which begin to switch on our dormant DNA. And then level 3, which is hierogamic union, the Christos hydroplasmic light, connects us to the 10, 11, 12, our full DNA capacity. And just know that the Venus transits have been showing the proof that these corrections have taken place And that is what allowed the sun to start to move through Ophiuchus again and bring the energy of the mother back to us. So really the sun moving through the 13th sign meant that the timeline can shift now because the mother has returned. It's returned in the hearts of us. It's returned in our acknowledgement of our divine blueprint, which is in harmony and balance and in sacred union of the masculine and feminine. It has restored the earth grids. It has helped us to not get caught in these, lower trappings. So one of the most important disclosures I could possibly say is that the mother energy has returned to the core of this planet. It's a diamond heart in the core of the planet. The 13th gate exists in the core of this planet. That's where it exists. It's the planetary consciousness. But it's been in reversals. It hasn't been available to us because of the Baphomet reversals, the Dark Mother reversals, and she basically was not grounded in the physical planetary body until 2010, and that's the corrections. So lots of interesting stuff connected to that. I hope you guys will check out my website, cosmicgaia.org, subscribe to some of the things I've got going on to stay connected. I can answer any questions. I've got thousands of slides and things to share. And I know I was only able to share some, but I certainly hope it was helpful. And I know we got a little time short, but anyway, I love you guys so much. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Laura from Montana. Yay. Thank you so much for